Hello everyone, and welcome to World War II at 80. My name is Ron May. I'm an author, historian, and public speaker on World War II history and stories. My new video series is a monthly review of events that took place 80 years ago during the last 2 years of World War II. Each episode will review the most significant events that happened in that month, as well as feature a story or two from those who were there. We continue with our second episode today, which focuses on the events and stories of February 1944. February was not the best month for Allied operations on the Italian peninsula in 1944. Operation Shingle, the U.S. effort to flank the dug-in German forces in central Italy with an amphibious landing at Anzio, was still in its early stages as February began. But already, things were going poorly. On January 30th, a battle between U.S. and German forces took place near the town of Cisterna, 15 miles northeast of the coastal city of Anzio, where the landing had occurred. The battle lasted 4 days. The objective was for Army forces to break out of the Anzio beachhead so they could advance to the German Gustav Line of defense. The effort failed, and at a great cost. The German forces in Cisterna, shown in red, detected the approach of the U.S. Army battalions, 3 of which were Army Ranger battalions, and set up an ambush which effectively halted their advance. The result was not only a defeat for the Army, it was also a significant loss of over 760 soldiers, 311 of whom were killed and 450 who were captured as POWs. On a larger scale, the loss meant that the U.S. 5th Army Division was still confined to the Anzio beachhead, shown in the solid blue border, and this 12 days after landing there. U.S. Army Air Forces flying over south-central Italy appear to have enjoyed more success than their big brother land forces. On February 15th, the Second Battle of Monte Cassino, the location shown on the map at right, resulted in major destruction to the Benedictine monastery perched on the peak that was thought to have contained German forces. U.S. bombers dropped 1,400 tons of high explosives on top of the abbey, causing major damage to the monastery. Here is a brief video showing the effect of that bombing. The Hilltop Abbey had been founded in 529 AD, or the Common Era. As a significant Italian religious and historic structure, it was placed in a protected zone during the war. Allied military leaders had mistakenly concluded that the Germans were using the abbey as an observation post, and that German artillery guns were positioned on the grounds of the monastery, firing upon Allied ground forces as they attempted to scale the mountain. Only after destroying much of the monastery did the Allies discover there was no German observation post, and no German artillery was firing from inside the monastery. Rather, they were positioned on slopes beneath or behind the abbey. No dead German forces were located after the bombing of the abbey, but sadly, 230 Italian civilians who had fled to the abbey for refuge during combat were found inside the compound, all of them dead. What seemed like a victorious Allied bombing mission turned out to be a tragic mistake. Bad luck for U.S. forces was not confined to mountain peaks and land. U.S. ships resupplying the ground forces off the coast of Anzio were coming under heavy German fire from the skies. Not all the ships survived the onslaught. The SS Elihu Yale, a Liberty ship built for cargo transport and operated by the U.S. Merchant Marines, was among the ships along the Anzio beach that came under attack by the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe. Frederick Robinson, Jr. of Martinsville, Indiana, was on board the ship. The lifelong Morgan County resident was born in Centerton, Indiana in 1924 and enlisted in the Navy in 1943 following graduation from Martinsville High School. Although he could have received a deferment to help his dad on the farm, he believed he had a responsibility to serve. Following 3 weeks of boot camp at Great Lakes Naval Training Center, he attended 1 week of gunnery school in Norfolk, Virginia, and became a qualified gunner and a member of the Navy Armed Guards, a unit which supplied gun crews on special cargo ships of the U.S. Merchant Marine. The ships were designed to replace the cargo ships in Europe, many of which were sunk by German U-boats. The newer cargo ships were outfitted with Navy guns to help defend against German attack at sea. Robinson was assigned to the SS Elihu Yale, which departed from the Brooklyn Naval Yards for Europe on December 24, 1943, the same day as Robinson's 19th birthday. Robinson and the crew survived the first round-trip delivery of cargo, but on February 15, 1944, the same date as the tragic bombing of the monastery on Monte Cassino, one of those transits ended in tragedy. The cargo ship was 1 to 2 miles off the coast of Anzio, Italy. German fighter planes and bombers from the Luftwaffe were flying overhead, patrolling the coast, when one of them released a radio-guided glide bomb, directing it at the Elihu Yale. The glide bomb hit the stern of the ship. The blast blew Robinson, who was on the fantail at the time, and many other of the crew into the water. Here is what survived of the ship after the attack. Of the 45 Navy Armed Guard crewmen on board the ship, only 18 of them survived. Robinson was one of the 18. He and the other survivors that had been blown into the water were picked up while floating in the sea by a British sub-chaser. They were then dropped off on the beach near Anzio. Members of the 5th Army Division, who had landed at Anzio 3 weeks earlier, took care of the men, providing them food, shelter, and clothing. Robinson and the other Navy survivors waited 4 weeks before getting on the USS General A.E. Anderson, an Army transport troop ship, to catch a ride back to the United States. Robinson's survival was a fitting symbol that U.S. forces in Italy would also persevere and see better days ahead. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Theater, U.S. forces were making slow but steady progress during February, invading islands in the Japanese area of control. The island of Kwajalein came under Allied control thanks to Operation Flintlock. The Battle of Kwajalein was fought by a combined force of U.S. Marine and Army troops from January 31st to February 3rd, 1944. U.S. troops also invaded other islands in the Japanese-held Marshall Island chain, indicated by the yellow arrow at the top right. For the U.S., the battle represented not only the next step in its island-hopping march to Japan, but also a significant morale victory because it was the first time the Americans had penetrated the outer ring of the Japanese Pacific sphere. It was one island step closer to the mainland of Japan. Learn more about World War II history during 1944 and the story of Frederick Robinson, Jr. and other veterans in my World War II trilogy, Our Service, Our Stories, Volumes 1, 2, and 3. The books are available for purchase on my website, ronaldpmay.com. To contact me for questions or to schedule me for a speaking engagement, email me at ron@ronaldpmay.com. Also, be sure to check out all my other videos on my YouTube channel at World War II History and Stories with Ron May. Please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. See you next month for Episode 3 featuring the events and stories of March 1944 with World War II at 80. Thanks for tuning in.